The anime begins with our main protagonist, Kaido, creeping towards a slime in a cave. But instead of using a sword or knife, he sprays 2 bottles of insecticide on the slime until it withers away and dies. Kaido feels a surge of happiness at how skilled he has become at killing slimes. This isn't surprising, as this is his 999th slime kill since he started working in these dungeons, determined to reach the 1000 mark. Venturing deeper into the dungeon, Kaido spots a golden slime sitting on a pillar. Excited by his luck at finding such a rare spawn for his 1000th kill, he quickly realizes this one isn't going to be easy. Undeterred, Kaido grabs a more powerful spray gun filled with pesticide and successfully kills the slime. He celebrates his 1000th kill and eagerly checks his stats, only to realize his level remains the same despite killing a golden slime. Hoping for good loot, he finds a small golden card with a girl drawn on it instead of a normal mana core. Initially confused, he soon realizes it's a servant card, a very rare item, and checks the stats, discovering the servant is a Valkyrie named Sylphie. Deciding to leave the dungeon before researching further, Kaido heads back, passing a group of adventurers with impressive armor, which he envies. At the reception, he exchanges slime cores for money. The receptionist then Hitsu gives him 100 yen per core, totaling 500 yen, which disappoints Kaido, but he takes it and moves on. He then asks Hitsu about the value of a rare servant card, especially a divine class one. But Hitsu thinks for a moment and tells him such a card could be worth over 1 billion yen. Shocked, Kaido keeps this information to himself, heads to his locker, changes into everyday clothing, and exits the area. It turns out the dungeon is part of an amusement park where people can get memberships to explore and find valuable items. Children in costumes talk about wanting to be explorers when they grow up, but Kaido is lost in thought about the card. While waiting for the train, he meets his friends Shinji and Hayato. On the train, Kaido tells them he's still stuck at level 3 and asks why they don't explore dungeons. Hayato then explains that 2 years ago, they encountered a goblin on the 2nd floor of a dungeon. Thinking it would be easy prey, the goblin ended up beating them all badly. Since then, Shinji and Hayato decided dungeons weren't for them and preferred exploring other attractions with their passes. Later that night, Kaido gets off the train, goes home, has dinner with his family, takes a bath, and goes to sleep. The next morning, he wonders whether to sell the card for 1 billion yen, which would buy him all the armor and video games he wants. However, his thoughts are interrupted by his friend Katsuragi, who asks where he was last night. Initially, Kaido lies, saying he was at a party with Shinji and Hayato. However, when Katsuragi asks them about the party, they end up giving different answers, like hooking up with your mother and bowling. However, Katsuragi realizes they are lying and asks if Kaido went to the dungeons again, but Kaido manages to lie convincingly and barely escapes. Later that day at school, he asks his friends what they would do with the servant card. They immediately reply that they would sell it, as it's worth a lot and you can't summon a servant outside of the dungeons anyway. Kaido then ponders whether to sell the card, but when he goes to the dungeons that day, he decides to keep it, wanting to become one of the strongest adventurers ever. Hiding from the camera, he takes out the card and calls forth Sylphie, the Valkyrie, to be his servant and follow his command. Suddenly, the card starts glowing, emitting a bright light that transforms into a huge woman with feathery wings and an ethereal form. She grabs Kaido and disappears. Confused, Kaido turns around to see a small Valkyrie in armor standing beside him. He asks who she is, wondering if a child got lost, but the Valkyrie replies that she is Sylphie, his servant from now on. Kaido's dreams of becoming a powerful adventurer shatter as he drops to the floor, regretting not selling the card. He pulls himself together and tells her they need to hunt some slimes. Sylphie senses something nearby, and Kaido decides to test her intuition, asking her to lead him to the creatures. She then easily locates the slime, and when Kaido asks if she can kill it, she immediately goes into action. Initially, Kaido wasn't expecting much from such a small girl, but to his surprise, Sylphie conjures a lightning attack so devastating that he fears the whole cave might collapse. Kaido then walks towards her, asking if she's alright, but she blushes and claims she's hungry. Remembering that servants eat mana cores, Kaido feeds her the core from the slime. She then thanks him and claims there are more slimes nearby. Kaido then asks if she can only detect slimes, and Sylphie replies that she can detect all monsters but feels hungry after each battle, needing to eat a mana core. Realizing this method is impractical for making money, Kaido devises a plan. He tells Sylphie to track down the slimes, which she happily does. Kaido then uses his spray bottles to kill them one by one. This efficient method allows him to save time by heading directly to the targets and neutralizing them with his insecticide sprays. After killing a bunch, he levels up to level 4 and gains a new passive skill called Slime Slayer, which boosts his stats by 50% when fighting slimes. Though initially disappointed with his new skill, Sylphie raises his spirits by saying that gaining a skill is an achievement in itself. Kaido smiles, thanks her for the help, and says he will return home as it's getting late. But Sylphie asks if he will summon her again soon, and he promises to do so as soon as possible. He then recalls Sylphie back to her servant card and heads to the reception to sell the manacores. However, Hitsu is shocked, exclaiming that he broke the daily slime extermination record by a large margin. She asks how he did it, and Kaido lies, saying he just got lucky. He then takes his 15,000 yen reward and heads home. Later that night, he contemplates venturing to the second level of the dungeon. Despite his fear of goblins, he believes Sylphie's strength will help him defeat them. That night, he dreams of a childhood memory, sitting in front of the TV with Katsuragi, watching an interview with Katsuragi's dad, a famous adventurer. The interview fills Kaido with amazement and solidifies his desire to follow in the same footsteps. The next morning, he wakes up with newfound conviction and confidence. Equipped with a new sword and shield bought with his reward money, he heads to the second floor of the dungeon alongside Sylphie, determined to clear all the dungeons and become the most famous adventurer in the world. As they enter the cave and walk for a while, Sylphie notices something is wrong. She then asks Kaido if he's okay, seeing that he looks pale and is shaking. Terrified of the cave, Kaido lies, saying he's just excited. But when Sylphie senses a goblin nearby, Kaido immediately turns and starts running. Sylphie, confused, asks what he's doing, but Kaido lies again, claiming he has urgent work at home. However, he suddenly remembers Katsuragi's dad from the TV interview and stops, deciding not to give up on his dreams, and grabs his wooden sword. They soon find a goblin sleeping behind a giant rock, but Kaido is too scared to act and asks Sylphie to kill it. She quickly agrees and begins chanting her spell. Suddenly, the goblin wakes up ready to fight, but Kaido jumps in between with his sword and tells Sylphie he's changed his mind. He rushes towards the goblin but misses his strike as the goblin backs off. The goblin then attacks, trying to ram Kaido to the ground, but he blocks the hit with his shield at the last moment. Seizing the opportunity, Kaido rushes in with his sword, but the goblin blocks the strike, disarming him and jumping to give him back shots. However, Kaido falls backward, defenseless, but remembers his sprays. Quickly, he sprays the goblin's eyes, blinding it and giving him a chance to land the final blow. But as he retrieves his sword and rushes towards the goblin, he trips over a rock and accidentally stabs the goblin in the chest, killing it instantly. Sylphie congratulates Kaido, who is still terrified but relieved to be alive. He then grabs the mana core and a golden glow emits from him, telling that he's leveled up again. Checking his stats, he discovers a new skill called Goblin Slayer. Although he has mixed feelings about this seemingly useless skill, he decides to accept it and move on. They soon venture deeper into the cave, where another goblin attacks, but Sylphie uses a defensive barrier to block the attacks, while Kaido times his sword slash perfectly, killing the monster. Kaido then kills his third goblin using the spray bottle to blind it before delivering the final blow. However, Sylphie drags him to yet another foe, and Kaido kills this goblin with a sword strike to the head, ranking up to level 6. As they continue walking, Kaido asks if Sylphie knows anything about the dungeons, but she replies that she has no idea and that her sole purpose is to help her master. Deeper inside, they find their final goblin of the day. It attacks Kaido while Sylphie uses her lightning magic to destroy the beast. Kaido then feeds her the mana core before heading outside. He hands over the mana crystals to Hitsu, lying again that it was just a fluke, and then heads home. That night, his body was so sore that he's unable to move from his bed. The next morning, he drags himself to school, walking alongside Katsuragi, who immediately suspects he went to the dungeons. Kaido denies it, claiming he was just bodybuilding at the gym, which is why he's sore. In the classroom, Kaido tells Shinji and Hayato about his new adventures in the level 2 dungeons, including killing 4 goblins. They are surprised and skeptical, but Kaido insists he's telling the truth and says he's going deeper today. After school, he returns to the dungeons with Sylphie and explores the distant parts of the cave. They kill goblins again, and with great teamwork, Sylphie blocks attacks while Kaido lands the killing blows. When Kaido gets too tired, Sylphie finishes the monsters with her lightning magic. After another exhausting expedition, Kaido sleeps like a log. The next day, he upgrades to a Drake, which does much more damage to the goblins, but he's so exhausted, he ends up sleeping in class. Despite this, he continues his adventures, going to the dungeons day after day and killing goblins by any means necessary until he reaches level 10, a big milestone for him. This time, he gets a special skill called Divine Love, which boosts his stat growth at every level, depending on the amount of love and care a divine goddess shows him. He immediately decides to confess how happy he is to go on adventures with someone as cool as Sylphie. The next monster they encounter is a glowing skeleton, a creature they've never faced before. Kaido tells Sylphie to stay alert, and she deploys her magic barrier. The skeleton then rushes at them, crashing against the barrier and trying to break through. Kaido tries to attack but finds his weapons too weak for this rare spawn. He then asks Sylphie to deal with it, and she chants her spell, shooting a lightning bolt that kills it instantly. However, the mana core dropped by the skeleton is bright red. This made him wonder if it could be rare, but decides to feed it to Sylphie anyway. Later that day, Kaido goes to Hitsu with his loot and asks about the mana core dropped by the glowing skeleton. Hitsu then explains that it's a rare drop and can easily fetch upwards of 2 million yen. Learning that he could have been a millionaire, Kaido was devastated. Hitsu then tells him not to worry, as encountering it once means he might meet it again. That night, Kaido wonders about the lost money but decides it doesn't matter since he leveled up significantly. He contemplates moving on to the 3rd floor but knows the enemies there appear in groups and are much more dangerous. The next day, he tells Sylphie that he wants her to simply watch for a while and not intervene. However, Sylphie, thinking that she did something wrong, apologizes, but Kaido explains that he wants to go up to the 3rd floor. He's afraid of becoming too dependent on her to save him, so he wants to get stronger first. Hearing this, Sylphie is relieved and wishes him good luck. Suddenly, a goblin appears from behind a rock and Kaido confidently tells Sylphie to watch as he deals with it. However, his plan backfires and he ends up getting injured badly. This led to him buying potions from Hitsu, which drains all of his savings. That night, he realizes he needs a lot of mana cores to feed Sylphie and better equipment. He decides to go back to square one and enters the 1st floor again to kill as many slimes as possible, gaining skills, levels, and mana cores. After several days of hard work in the dungeons alone, he finally collects enough mana cores to feel comfortable moving on to the 3rd floor. Before leaving the cave, Sylphie claims she senses a different kind of slime. Her intuition proves correct when Kaido spots a silver slime nearby. He immediately jumps into action and rushes the slime with his spray gun, but the slime is faster and dodges away. Thankfully, Sylphie is raiding nearby and uses her lightning magic to kill the slime instantly. To their surprise, the slime drops another servant card, an incredibly lucky find. Kaido then picks up the card and sees it's a demon rank card for a servant named Luce. He looks at Sylphie, who seems visibly upset by the card and soon realizes that demons and goddesses must not get along well. Despite this, he decides to follow his own wishes without consulting Sylphie and summons the demon servant right there. A huge red flame envelops them, and a large demon mommy emerges, flying straight through Kaido in her ethereal form, just like what happened with Sylphie. Soon he looks down and spots another summon, this time a demon with bat wings and horns. Kaido is devastated to see that Lucilia looks nothing like the beautiful mommy shown on the card. They soon introduce themselves, but Lucilia quickly thinks Kaido seems neither reliable nor smart. However, Sylphie isn't fond of her belittling their master, but Lucilia tells her not to worry as every demon is like this, and Sylphie reluctantly accepts this. Lucilia then asks about Sylphie, noticing she looks like a Valkyrie, but Sylphie confirms that she is Kaido's servant just like Lucilia, and looks forward to working together. Suddenly, Lucilia demands food, but Kaido refuses, saying she hasn't done anything yet. Sylphie then notices a slime nearby, and Lucilia smugly steps in to do her job. She uses an overpowered attack called Hellfire of Destruction to obliterate the slime, and Kaido feeds her the core. However, Lucilia demands more as she is not satisfied, but Kaido tells her he has no more cores. She calls him a cheapskate and begrudgingly uses her other attack, Breath of Erosion, on a goblin, practically melting it. But Sylphie and Kaido find it too gross to watch. Kaido then gives Lucilia the core, which she likes better than the slime core, and suggests exploring lower floors for tastier cores from stronger monsters. However, Kaido stops her, saying there are more monsters on the 3rd floor. Lucilia doesn't see any problem with this, but Kaido insists they need new weapons and supplies first. So Lucilia agrees to listen to him, especially after Sylphie tells her to obey their master. The next day, the three head to the 3rd floor. This time, Kaido has bought a crossbow as his new weapon. Sylphie thinks it suits him well, and Kaido mentions it was quite expensive, but Lucilia states that price doesn't matter. They then encounter two hellhounds and Kaido shoots at them but misses, causing the hounds to attack him. Sylphie quickly protects him with a barrier, and Lucilia takes out the hounds with Hellfire of Destruction. Kaido then feeds her a core, but she demands the other one as well. Kaido refuses again, saying he won't have any left if she eats them all. She isn't thrilled, but Kaido promises her an extra core if she kills more monsters. But she threatens to send him to hell if he breaks his promise, which scares him a bit. They then soon encounter two wild boars, so Lucilia uses Hellfire of Destruction again but only kills one of the monsters, causing the other to charge at them. She tries to use another attack, but Kaido stops her and shoots the boar. However, one shot isn't enough, startling Kaido and causing him to fall. Sylphie then tries to help with her Divine Lightning, but before she can, Kaido kills the boar with another shot. She then praises Kaido, but Lucilia finds it lame that he was scared. Suddenly, Kaido notices he has leveled up to level 11 and Lucilia asks for magic cores again. Afterwards, Kaido exits the facility thinking he won't make any profit if he keeps feeding all the cores to his servants. On the way, he overhears a party of adventurers talking and learns that 3 girls in the party can make it to the 6th floor without any problems. The scene then cuts to Kaido thinking about this in class. He is sure their party can make it to the 6th floor as well if they work hard. He daydreams about advancing further into the dungeon and his classmates wake him up from his delusion. Kaido's classmates wonder how he can be so carefree given that even they don't have enough points to get into their school of choice. They soon find out that he is carefree because he hasn't decided on a school yet. However, Katsuragi overhears this and asks Kaido which school he will choose. Unsure what to say, he asks her school of choice first and she tells him she's going to Oka Academy, wondering if he will enroll there as well. Not having made a choice, he tells her that he will, making Katsuragi happy as they will go to school together again. Kaido wonders why she was so happy, and his friends decided not to tell him for his own good. The scene cuts to him in the labyrinth again, where the servants kill all the monsters they come across one by one. Unlike Sophie, Lucilia constantly asks Kaido for more cores, and he has no choice but to listen to her. Sophie isn't happy about this, but Kaido doesn't catch on. However, when Sophie looks at him, he asks if something is wrong, but she doesn't tell him anything. At home, Kaido notices his mother watching a drama on TV with a similar situation to his. Watching the drama, he figures out that Sophie is probably anxious because of the new servant Lucilia and fears this could lead to a duel between them just like in the drama. Thinking this would be devastating, Kaido wonders how to resolve it. The next morning, he meets Katsuragi on his way to school, and she notices that he looks tired. However, after talking to him, she finds out that he didn't sleep last night, so she asks if he has trouble and offers to help. He tries to tell her the truth but decides not to, instead informing her that his 2 friends have befriended 2 girls with different personalities and the quieter one doesn't like the one with the harsh personality. After hearing this, Katsuragi suggests talking to the quiet girl directly. Later in the dungeon, Kaido only summons Sylphie and tells her that he wants to talk to her alone. This causes Sylphie to blush but isn't thrilled to find out that he wants to talk about Lucilia. He then asks if she dislikes Lucilia, and Sylphie denies this, explaining that at first she found Lucilia scary, but now knows the demon didn't mean any harm and is actually a nice and kind girl. But Kaido insists on knowing if she has any problems, telling her she's important to him. Flustered, Sylphie admits she feels her master is too kind to Lucilia and wants him to be the same for her. This confuses Kaido as he thinks that he treats them equally, but Sylphie explains that Lucilia has been getting more cores and more of his attention. Kaido soon realizes Sylphie is jealous and agrees to give her as many cores as Lucilia, and to talk to her more from now on. Sylphie is glad to hear Kaido's reassurances, and later Kaido starts feeding both Sylphie and Lucilia the same number of cores. He compliments Sylphie for her well-timed attack on a monster, which prompts Lucilia to demand praise as well. Kaido also praises her, making Lucilia act smug. They then encounter a wild boar, which Sylphie takes out, causing her to level up in the process. Kaido soon notices her stats have increased significantly, and Sylphie is pleased. Lucilia then congratulates her, and not long after they encounter 3 hellhounds, which Sylphie defeats with a single attack. They soon fight another wild boar, with Sylphie defending everyone with a barrier. There, Kaido observes that her barriers are more durable now. Lucilia tries to attack the boar, but Kaido stops her, wanting to handle it himself. He then feeds Sylphie some cores, which annoys Lucilia as she didn't get to fight. But Sylphie softly asks Kaido for more cores, making him realize that leveling up has increased her appetite as well. That afternoon, he exchanges the cores for money, and the appraiser notes that Kaido has been bringing fewer cores lately, expressing dissatisfaction. The next day, Kaido kills 25 slimes on the first dungeon level, and Sylphie praises him, but Lucilia is unhappy about not getting to fight. Kaido explains that he can't save up magic cores if she fights too, so Lucilia questions why he summoned her, but Sylphie expresses her happiness to support Kaido. Kaido appreciates her support, making Lucilia happy, though she doesn't admit it openly. She then quietly agrees to continue supporting him. The scene then shifts to Kaido searching online for better gear, where he finds a carbon nanotube suit that is too expensive for his budget. In the dungeon, he finds a blue metallic slime, attributing it to his god's blessing. Expecting a servant card, he is surprised when it drops a magic orb instead. He soon explains that this orb can make him a mage and uses it, gaining the water ball skill. Excited, he finds a hellhound and asks Sylphie to cast a barrier, while also ordering Lucilia to attack if he misses. Sylphie quickly casts the barrier, but the water ball fails to harm the hellhound, so Lucilia defeats it. Upon seeing its performance, Kaido is disappointed by his magic's ineffectiveness. Sylphie tries to cheer him up, admiring his ability to use magic at all, and Lucilia jokes that at least he won't have to worry about drinking water. Regretting not selling the magic orb that night, Kaido sits in a park feeling down. Suddenly, Katsuragi finds him and asks why he's out so late. He almost reveals his magic skill, but changes the subject to a disappointing movie. They then walk home together, and Kaido learns Katsuragi was returning from cram school. He also thanks her for her advice, which helps solve his problem. But when Katsuragi wonders if the situation was about him, he denies it. Upon hearing this, she leaves, and Kaido wonders if she was angry, thinking that she might be jealous like Sylphie. However, he soon dismisses the idea, thinking that it is unlikely. The next day, Kaido heads back to the dungeon to work on his water ball spell. He starts off slow, shooting a water ball at the wall, but it doesn't do much except getting your mom wet. However, Kaido is already exhausted from just one spell but keeps training. On his second try, he blasts the water ball as fast as he can, and both he and Sylphie are excited about it. Lucilia, however, is unimpressed because after just 2 water balls, Kaido is completely drained and collapses on the ground, so he heads home and falls asleep as soon as he hits the bed. In his dreams, Kaido remembers watching Katsuragi's dad on TV when he was a kid and how that made him dream of becoming an adventurer like him. Motivated by that dream, he returns to the dungeon the next day and starts practicing his water ball strikes again. This time he's gotten a lot faster and shoots multiple water balls at the dungeon walls, but eventually he runs out of mana. He takes a quick break to catch his breath, but as soon as he feels better, he jumps right back into training. This time, he experiments with the shape of the water ball, turning it into a cube. Thrilled with his success and keeps experimenting with different shapes, but soon he gets worn out and falls on his back. As he's walking out of the dungeon, he trips and falls into the arms of another adventurer. He quickly gets up and apologizes, but this amazing mommy asks if he's alright. Kaido then assures her he's fine and leaves, but she's concerned as he doesn't look well. Seeing him, her crew is impressed by his hustle and heads into the dungeon. The scene then shifts to Kaido dozing off in class, and when the teacher wakes him up, he loudly declares that he's going to give it his all in training today, making the whole class laugh. During the break, his friends ask what he meant by the training stuff, but Kaido explains that he's practicing a crucial skill for dungeon success. But then Katsuragi shows up asking if he's training for the dungeon, but Kaido quickly switches it up, saying he's talking about dance practice. Hearing this, she is relieved and tells him not to overdo it, saying she wants to see his dance performance someday, leaving Kaido and the boys alone. The next day, Kaido returns to the dungeon for some real combat action with his water ball. He shoots a goblin with it, but instead of popping like usual, the water ball stays solid and clogs up the goblin's airways, suffocating it. Sylphie and Lucilia praise him, but Kaido realizes he's not getting any more experience points from the monsters on the 3rd floor. This meant that it's time to level up and head down to the 4th floor. However, Kaido figures he needs better gear for this challenge, so he decides to buy something that's been on his wish list for a while. The next day, he arrives wearing a tight bodysuit, which Sylphie thinks looks great in, but Lucilia shatters his ego by calling him lame. Kaido then explains that the suit is high-end and pricey because it's made of carbon nanotubes that protect him from damage while being thin and light. He proceeds to detail how the suit has top defense against arrows and other piercing attacks, and he's also got a magic amplifying bracelet that'll make even his weak spells hit harder. However, he hasn't tested it out yet and shows off other stuff he bought, but Lucilia drags Sylphie away out of boredom. They eventually make their way to the 4th floor, where Sylphie senses a big creepy monster coming their way. Before Kaido can check the monster encyclopedia to see what they're up against, a giant big black cockroach appears and both girls freak out, clinging to each other. They then start blasting magic spells at the roach monster while running through the dungeon, with Kaido trying to keep up because he doesn't want to be left behind. After they exhaust themselves, Sylphie and Lucilia take a breather and almost attack Kaido when he comes running up to them. Realizing that it's him, she runs over and hugs Kaido, saying she was scared, while Lucilia maintains her tsundere act, claiming she's not scared of bugs. However, Sylphie apologizes to Kaido for leaving him behind and begs him to scold her. But he tells her he isn't mad because they cleared the 4th floor in record time with their wild rampage, explaining that he's collected a lot of mana cores from all the defeated monsters. Surprisingly, Lucilia refuses to eat the big black crystals, but she's too hungry to turn them down. Not long after, they went to scout the 5th floor, where Sylphie's sixth sense detects a sand monster and another monster nearby. Kaido takes aim with his crossbow, but his first arrow misses, and the second one goes right through the sand monster, which immediately retaliates and attacks him. After shouting out Sylphie's name, she quickly throws up a barrier to protect him. But Kaido soon realizes that these two monsters are immune to physical attacks, so he turns to Lucilia for backup. She straight up obliterates them with her fiery attack, and Kaido asks if she needs to recharge her mana with the nasty crystals, but is quickly rejected. They kept on exploring the 5th floor, but it seems like there aren't any more monsters nearby. Just then, Sylphie spots something weird on a wall, but Kaido doesn't see anything special about it. Sylphie then decides to go all out and blast a hole in the wall with her lightning attack, revealing a secret passageway. They soon head in, and Kaido warns the girls to watch out for any traps. Just as he says this, Lucilia tells him it's too late, and an arrow shoots out, sending Kaido to the ground in pain. His party is all worried, but thankfully his bodysuit protects him from any serious damage, so he bounces back in a few minutes. They keep moving forward, but then Lucilia steps on another trap tile. This time, Kaido steps back to avoid the arrow, but gets zapped by lightning instead. Surprisingly, he's totally fine and feels a bit energized by this. Shyly, Lucilia tells him to stop making her worry, but when he asks if she was actually worried about him, she goes full tsundere, denying it again. Eventually, they come across a massive gate with a badass painting on it, and Sylphie senses a crazy strong presence on the other side. But as Kaido's ready to call it a day and head home, the two girls didn't let him off the hook that easily. He then tries opening the gate, but it won't budge. So Sylphie just unleashes her lightning attack on it, breaking it open. They soon step inside and come face to face with two badass monsters. One's a red version of your father, and the other's a massive slime equivalent to the size of your mother. Now that they've come this far, Kaido tells his girls to focus on taking down the red ogre first. They then unleash their lightning and fire attacks, but the ogre barely even flinches because it's immune to magic damage. The ogre charges at them, but Sylphie's barrier skill blocks its attack. Kaido then tells Lucilia to handle the slime while he takes shots at the red ogre with his crossbow. Each arrow he fires chips away at the ogre's health, but then he runs out of arrows. The pissed off ogre starts pounding the barrier, while Lucilia is struggling to deal with the giant slime on her own. As a last resort, Kaido decides to rely on his water ball. He conjures up a water ball and it suddenly freezes because of the bracelet's effect. He then shoots the ice ball at the red ogre, slowly wearing down its health. But then he realizes his mana is running low, so Kaido gets crafty and shapes his ice balls into sharp icicles that pack a bigger punch against the red ogre. With the final 3 shots in his arsenal, Kaido brings down the red ogre, leaving the slime left. As Sylphie is about to smack the slime, Kaido jumps in and defends her with his shield. He then holds the slime back and tells Sylphie to get ready for her divine spear attack. However, his shield and gear start melting, but Sylphie charges at the slime with her divine spear and pierces right through it, barely doing damage to it. As Kaido is ready to throw in the towel, he soon remembers his hero and charges forward, dodging the slime's attacks. He pulls out his trusty bug spray because, giant or not, the monster is still a slime. He soon finishes his 2 bottles, so he digs into his bag and whips out 2 extra strong bug sprays. Kaido then unleashes them all on the slime, and finally, the slime's health hits 0 and it bites the dust. The girls all excitedly hug Kaido, but they end up hurting his injured shoulder. However, he quickly fixes it up by shoving a health potion right after that. But to their surprise, Lucilia levels up and Kaido checks out his stats to find that he's also leveled up a whole lot too. He wastes no time and starts gathering mana cores, but stumbles upon the red core of the ogre, which he knows will fetch a pretty penny. When he goes looking for the slime's core, he instead comes across a rare grade magic sword, which looked more like a steak knife than a magic sword. Later on, Kaido takes the red ogre mana core to Hitsugaya, who's all curious about where he found it. He then tells her about the hidden dungeon on the 5th floor and how he kicked the boss ass. But Hitsugaya says they've got to check that dungeon out fast and lets Kaido know that the red mana core is worth a whole lot of cash. Kaido is stoked to hear that news, and with another good news, Hitsugaya invites him to join an event next week where they'll be taking on the 7th floor as a group. The following week, Kaido heads to the event and bumps into the 3 girls from the other day. Their leader, Eri, introduces herself alongside with the pink cat girl who goes by Miku, with the last one being Hikari. Meanwhile, Katsuragi dreams of the past where she sees her dad heading off to buy milk in the dungeon. She asks him to come back soon and he promises to be home early for dinner. But as he leaves, Katsuragi wakes up. She then decides to go to her friend's house to study, but when she steps out, she wonders if Kaido is busy with dance practice or muscle training today. The scene soon shifts to the event participants lining up for teleportation. There, Kaido's crew is holding hands in the teleport circle, and suddenly, they find themselves on the 6th floor. Kaido is relieved they arrived safely, admitting it's only his 2nd time using the gate, the first being yesterday from the 6th floor to the ground. However, his teammates shared that it's the same for them, and they too were nervous. They soon meet a staff member who guides them to the stairs leading to the 7th floor, informing them that today's event will last 3 hours. Near the stairs, they spot a convenience store. Eri then asks Kaido if he needs anything, and Kaido, finding it convenient, decides to buy refills for his pesticide spray. His teammates, however, notice his heavy luggage, but he finds it odd they're traveling light. They explain it's because they have magic bags, shocking Kaido since those cost as much as a mansion. They then reveal their parents bought the bags for them, making Kaido realize they come from wealthy families. Eri then asks if Kaido has the proper equipment. However, embarrassed, he admits he's been gradually buying gear with money from selling magic cores. Meiko then points out he's only wearing a tight suit, and Hikari scolds her for being blunt. They soon gear up and head to the 7th floor, where they discuss the golem-type monsters that appear there. Suddenly, they spot shadows and quickly prepare for battle, but it turns out to be staff members cleaning the dungeon who encourage them before moving on. Not long after, Kaido shares that he's level 16 and learns that Eri is level 18 and Hikari and Miku are level 15. Meiko then also mentions Hikari's high MP, surprising Kaido since he has half that, finding her impressive. Soon, they encounter a stone golem and Eri instructs Hikari to use her magic while Miku protects Eri during the fight. Kaido is told to watch Eri's back, but she quickly defeats the golem on her own, impressing Kaido. Next, they face a bronze golem which Hikari traps with an earth wave spell. Miku's servant, Snatch, then dodges its attacks and uses a wind spell before Hikari finishes it with a fireball. Suddenly, an iron golem appears behind them. However, Kaido's crossbow is ineffective and Eri struggles to damage it. Hikari's fireball and Miku's snatch also fail, and the golem injures Snatch. Feeling cornered, Kaido thinks of summoning Sylphie or Lucilia, but drops a plate knife from his bag, remembering reading about a magic sword online. He learned that the magic sword can deal whatever damage the user imagines, so Kaido decides to visualize himself defeating the monster. He asks Hikari to use Earthwave to trap the monster, which she does, immobilizing it, and requests Eri to distract the monster, and she launches a barrage of attacks. Kaido then attacks the monster from behind with a magic sword, imagining it exploding, and the monster indeed blows up. Later, they sit in a cafe discussing their dungeon exploration. They talk about Kaido's tiny sword, and Kaido explains that he got it as a drop item recently and is relieved it works since it was his first time using it. However, he asks Miku how Snatch is doing and is relieved to hear that Snatch is fine. Kaido then mentions that it was his first time seeing a carbuncle, and that he's never even seen one in a video before. But Miku explains that servants can't be captured on camera. Following her, Eri asks Kaido if he has ever seen any of them on video, and Kaido realizes he hasn't, which explains why guild officials never asked about Sylphie and Lucilia. This causes him to wonder if they are the only ones who know about Snatch. But Miku clarifies that she picked Snatch from an auction and registered him with the guild, so everyone knows about him. After the conversation, Miku suggests they all put matching keychains on their magic pouches to commemorate participating in the event, and everyone agrees. Afterward, Eri asks Kaido to join their party as a permanent member, explaining that there are transfer gates every 5 floors and their current goal is to reach the gate on the 11th floor. Deep down, Kaido likes the idea but insists that he's just an ordinary explorer and not as special as they are. They then try to reassure him, saying they feel safer with him around. But he was soon reminded of his 2 servants. Kaido worries that if they find out he's bringing 2 little girls into the dungeon, he might get reported, so he asks for some time to consider it. This made Miku wonder if he disliked their party, but he assures her he needs time to think and will give them an answer later. The scene then shifts to him returning to the dungeon. Inside, he summons his servants, who are upset that he didn't summon them earlier. There he explains that he's considering forming a party with others, but his servants are unhappy and can't believe this is the first thing he mentions after seeing them. He then tells them he didn't abandon them, explaining he had business to handle and couldn't summon them in the morning. He tries to discuss the party again, but they insist that the 3 of them are fine as they are. Kaido persists, but Sylphie firmly tells him to end the conversation there. Lucilia also gets mad at him for always calling her by her full name, but Kaido is clueless about what else to call her. She then points out he calls Sylphie by her nickname, so he realizes that Lucilia is jealous this time. He soon suggests a few nicknames for her, and she likes Lucy Ad, and they agree to call her this from now on. The 2 of them then go ahead to explore the dungeon, and Kaido states that they still haven't cleared up the party issue if they ignore him. The next day, while going to school, Katsuragi asks Kaido if he practiced dancing over the weekend or did muscle training, and Kaido says he did both. She's glad to hear this and asks if he'd like to go shopping with her next Saturday, and he shyly agrees. Katsuragi then notices one of her friends ahead and walks the rest of the way with her. However, Kaido also encounters his friends on the way, and they have heard about the shopping trip. They wonder if they're going on a date, but Kaido doesn't think Katsuragi would be interested in dating him. His friends are disappointed by how clueless he is, So they then ask him about the event and if he partnered with an older person, but he informs them that he joined a party of 3 girls. Hearing this, his friends wonder if the dungeon is more fun than they expected and consider heading back in there themselves. The scene then cuts to Saturday, where Kaido picks up Katsuragi from her home and they head to the subway station. There, Kaido notices a broadcast of the dungeon TV show. Watching it, we learn that magic cores are valuable resources that can be traded for money. Despite their value, the exact use of their unknown energy is still a mystery. Katsuragi, however, noticing Kaido's interest, tells him to forget about the dungeons for today and focus on their shopping trip. As they walk around town, Katsuragi wonders when was the last time the two of them went out like this. But Kaido thinks back to their childhood, remembering her dad taking them to various places. They then hit the stores for some clothes shopping, where Katsuragi tries on a few outfits. Finally, she asks which one he likes best, and he picks the one she's currently wearing. Afterward, they head to the park, where Katsuragi spots some boats and suggests they go for a ride. As they paddle around, Katsuragi notices some beautiful fish in the water, but Kaido thinks she's even more beautiful. Seeing couples in the other boats, Kaido briefly imagines they must look like a couple too, but quickly dismisses the thought, reminding himself they're just hanging out. Katsuragi soon notices that Kaido looks more muscular than usual and comments that his muscle training is paying off. This flustered the boy, and she says that they should have more outings like this. The scene then cuts to them sipping juice, both enjoying the flavors, but Katsuragi asks if Kaido wants to try her flavor, and Kaido agrees, offering her a sip from his glass. After tasting her flavor, he thinks it's pretty good. However, Katsuragi hesitates for a moment, thinking of it as an indirect kiss, but then goes for it nevertheless. They head back to the subway station and spot an advertisement about the dungeon again. There, Katsuragi sees a dad holding his daughter and tells Kaido she wants to visit another place. She soon leads him to the dungeon theme park, and he wonders if she wants to go inside since the parade and fireworks are about to start. However, she just asks if the dungeon building is inside the park, explaining that's where her dad is. We learn that she had been dreaming about the last time she saw her dad, who had promised to have dinner with her but never came home. She also questions why he even goes into the dungeon. But before they go home, Katsuragi tells Kaido that she had a great time today and suggests that they head home. Deep in his heart, Kaido knows she's worried about her dad, but he is determined to prove that he can be a hero just like him. During his next venture into the dungeon, Kaido experiments with his abilities by coating his magic sword with his water ball spell. Lucelia is skeptical about whether this will work, but to their surprise, it is a success. Using this technique, Kaido defeats a stone golem in one hit. Sylphie is delighted and claps for him, telling Lucelia that their master is quickly becoming stronger. However, Lucelia immediately responds, suggesting that it must be because of a woman, which catches Kaido off guard. When he asks her why she thinks so, Lucelia simply replies that it's her intuition. Sensing his nervousness, Sylphie asks Kaido if the reason he wanted to join a party the other day was also because of a woman. Kaido hesitates but eventually admits that a group of 3 girls invited him to join their party. This causes Sylphie to feel a bit insecure, but Lucelia assumes he doesn't want to waste any more money on them. As she's about to reprimand him for treating them this way, Kaido promises he will continue providing them with mana cores, and both Lucelia and Sylphie forgive him. Kaido soon assures them that he is not joining the party, but Sylphie unexpectedly encourages him to join. She says that if her master has chosen to join another party, she wants to support him, and Lucelia agrees as long as she continues to receive mana cores. Sylphie then asks him to reveal his reason for wanting to party with others, and Kaido explains that he wants to grow stronger by fighting alongside other humans. Otherwise, he will never catch up to Sylphie and Lucelia. Satisfied with his explanation, Kaido promises that he will only join Aries' team on weekends, so they can still spend time together on other days. Later that night, Kaido finds it easier to get permission from an angel and a devil than to call a girl. As he nervously tries to make the call, Katsuragi suddenly calls him, saying she just wants to chat for a bit. Kaido is happy to oblige, but first asks if she knows any ways to reduce nervousness. When she asks why, Kaido uses his friends as a cover, saying they want to call a girl but are too nervous. Katsuragi then shares a story about a time she was nervous to play the piano on stage, and her dad forced a smile onto her face to calm her down. He then tells her that he'll try that out and wishes her good night. As the call ends, he wonders what she wanted to talk about in the first place but doesn't dwell on it. He then calls Eri, who is practicing in her family dojo. Upon receiving the call, she eagerly asks if he has decided to join their party. Kaido soon explains that he can only join on weekends, and Eri replies that they only visit the dungeon on weekends, so it works out perfectly. On the following Saturday, Kaido joins the girls and enters the 7th floor of the dungeon. When a group of stone golems attacks them, Kaido takes charge, instructing Hikari and Miku to support him. Hikari uses earth magic to restrain 2 golems, while Miku summons her servant Snatch to distract the third. Seizing the opportunity, Kaido enchants his magic sword with Water Ball, creating an ice sword, and defeats a golem with a single strike. Another golem attacks, but he dodges and finishes it off quickly. The girls are curious about when Kaido learned magic and why his Water Ball took the form of a sword. He explains that he knows only one water spell and has been experimenting. Eri, however, compliments his Ice Blade and his leadership, finding it hard to believe it's his first time fighting with a group. To avoid more questions, Kaido praises Eri's skill with her weapon, and she mentions she's been practicing since childhood. Suddenly, Kaido's stomach growls loudly, and he asks the girls if they can take a lunch break. To his surprise, they have an entire kitchen set up in their magic pouches and prepare fried fish and grilled steak right in the dungeon. When Kaido returns home that night, he reflects on how Eri and her friends possess a level of generational wealth he can only dream of achieving. The following day, Eri plans to explore the 8th floor of the dungeon, which features aquatic monsters and water-based terrain. Since Kaido doesn't know how to swim, he buys a high-end life jacket to help him. But when they arrive at the 8th floor, Snatch, Miku's servant, detects a monster in a pool of water. Suddenly, a salamander emerges from the pool and spits acid at Kaido, melting his expensive life jacket instantly. Kaido cries out, demanding the monster refund him for the life jacket, but it spits more acid at him, forcing him to dodge. Miku then shoots the salamander with a crossbow Kaido lent her, as he was no longer planning to use it. They soon encounter more water-themed monsters and spend much of their time running from them. A squid monster flings Kaido into a pond, and he flails around because he can't swim. However, Eri tells him to stop being a wimp since the water is shallow. Next, they face flying tuna monsters that leap out of the water to attack them. Kaido fights them with his magic sword, while the girls use their weapons to thin out the fish monsters. As Kaido runs low on ammo, he notices Eri effortlessly slashing down monsters with her long-handled blade. Inspired, he shapes his ice sword into a similar weapon and starts taking down the fish monsters, though each slash drains a significant chunk of his mana. The girls notice him cutting down the monsters with ease, but Kaido collapses after using up all his mana. When he wakes up, he finds himself resting on Eri's lap and quickly sits up, apologizing for troubling her and assuring her he's fine. Surprisingly, his mana points are fully restored, and Eri reveals that she gave him a mana potion while he was unconscious. Kaido, however, says that it must have been expensive, but she tells him not to worry about it since they're party members. Eri then comments on Kaido's fighting style, and he explains that he based it on her technique. Before they can discuss further, Snatch warns everyone about a very powerful monster approaching. They stay on guard as a huge dinosaur-like creature emerges from the water. Kaido panics, explaining that dinosaurs are high-level monsters usually found on deeper floors. He and the girls attempt to flee, but the dinosaur follows. Its immense weight causes the floor to crumble, blocking their exit. Realizing they have no way out, Kaido declares they must fight together to survive. He instructs Miku and Hikari to attack the dinosaur from a distance and asks Eri to strike while he distracts it. Hikari's earth magic and Snatch's wind blades are ineffective against the water dinosaur. Although Kaido manages to stab it with his ice blade, the damage is minimal. Enraged, the dinosaur attacks him, creating a perfect opening for Eri to deliver a finishing blow. She leaps onto the dinosaur's head and stabs it with her spear, but it's not enough. The monster violently swings its neck, flinging her away. Kaido rushes to check on Eri, who mutters about becoming a hero. As she tries to reach for her weapon, she passes out. Supporting Eri, Kaido considers calling Sylphie and Lucilia, but hesitates to reveal them to others. However, seeing the monster trying to attack Hikari and Miku, he decides it's not the time to hesitate. He pulls out the servant cards and summons Sylphie and Lucilia. A radiant storm of divine and demonic energy swirls before Sylphie and Lucilia appear, leaving everyone in awe. Even Eri opens her eyes just in time to see Sylphie and Lucilia take form. Kaido apologizes to them for the sudden summons and asks them to defeat the dinosaur monster. They use their lightning and fire attacks, bringing down the dinosaur monster in seconds. Once the threat is neutralized, Sylphie rushes to Kaido, asking if he's hurt, but he assures her he's fine. Lucilia then teases Kaido, saying he was after women in the end. Suddenly, Miku leaps on Sylphie, exclaiming that she's never seen anyone as cute as her and asks if Sylphie is a real angel. Meanwhile, Hikari thanks Lucilia for saving them and gushes over the cute demon. Lucilia tries to act cold, but she can't resist Hikari's earnest gaze and agrees to let her get closer. Even Eri is smitten by their cuteness but restrains herself. She asks Kaido if these girls are his servants, and he confirms. They then go to the dungeon's bathhouse, and Eri is amazed that Kaido has both an angel and a demon as his servants. There the girls get comfortable together and we see Kaido by bathing together with Snatch. Later, they exit the dungeon and Hikari's parents arrive to pick up her and Miku. Once alone, Kaido recalls Eri's determination to return to the fight despite being knocked out, wanting to be a hero. He asks if they can talk about it, learning that her dad inspired her to be a hero who faces great challenges and saves everyone. Kaido feels they share a similar spirit. Eri then invites him to an open campus event at her university the following weekend. Kaido discusses the event with his friends, knowing Eri attends a prestigious university. They suggest he invite Katsuragi instead of them, calling it their second date, but Katsuragi overhears her name and approaches her friend, asking if they were talking about her. Kaido tries to deny it, but his friends encourage him, so he uses the nervousness removal technique before telling Katsuragi about the open campus event. It turns out Katsuragi was already planning to attend and wanted Kaido to join her from the start. The next weekend, she wears the dress Kaido chose for her on their previous date to the event. But when Kaido sees Katsuragi, he can't help but think she looks cute. They then head off to Oka Academy, and on the train, Kaido initially sits a bit too far from Katsuragi, but quickly moves closer when she tells him to. She thanks him for inviting her to the open campus, but Kaido, trying to play it cool, says it's no big deal since he planned to go anyway. Katsuragi mentions that she enjoys it more with the two of them together, and Kaido can't help but agree. For a moment, it feels like a date, but he quickly reminds himself they're just checking out the academy. But it turns out Shinji and Hayato are also on the train, equally excited. Kaido, a bit surprised, asks why they're tagging along since their plans involve different schools. However, they casually explain that they just wanted to experience an open campus themselves, reassuring him they have no intention of playing third wheel between him and Katsuragi. Kaido brushes off their remarks, focusing on Katsuragi instead. As they continue the ride, Kaido spots a poster about the dungeon on the train. She quickly notices his interest and asks if he's bummed about missing out on the dungeon. But with a smooth move, he tells her that going to the open campus with her is way better than any dungeon. His doobly Riz made the girl smile and suggested they forget about the dungeon for today. Soon after, they arrive at Oka Academy. The grand campus immediately impresses them, and one glance is enough to tell this is where the elite gather. Katsuragi suggests heading to the reception, and on the way they pass by some beautiful cherry blossom trees. Katsuragi imagines the two of them walking together under these cherry blossoms next spring, and Kaido can't help but picture the same. Lost in his daydreams, Kaido starts to drift off, but Katsuragi quickly snaps him back to reality. Realizing he's getting ahead of himself, Kaido resolves to focus on studying hard and passing the exams to make his dream come true. He reminds himself that even if they both get into the academy, they'll just be classmates, and with that, he pushes his fantasies aside. After arriving at the reception, Kaido spots Eri, who seems eager to get to know him better. She casually wonders if he's brought his friends along, but before Kaido can even finish introducing them, his friends, suddenly energized by the sight of a beautiful girl, jump in to introduce themselves with an air of dignity they rarely show. Eri then asks if the girl with him is his girlfriend, but Kaido quickly clarifies that Katsuragi is just his childhood friend and neighbor. She then tells them to explore the campus on their own for a bit and mentions that she'll give them a proper tour when she's free from her duties. As they leave, Eri feels oddly relieved that Katsuragi isn't Kaido's girlfriend, though she's not quite sure why. As they wander through the academy building, Katsuragi, ever curious, asks Kaido how he and Eri met. Kaido explains that they cross paths in the dungeon, and the temperature seems to drop as Katsuragi shoots in a cold look. The atmosphere gets even frostier when Kaido, without thinking, mentions that it was Eri who tipped him off about the open campus. Katsuragi, trying to keep her cool, spins the situation positively, saying that they should be grateful to Eri for giving them the opportunity to come here together. She reminds Kaido of his promise not to talk about the dungeon today, and though her tone is calm, the underlying anger is hard to miss. Sensing the tension, Kaido's friends quickly pull him aside, away from Katsuragi. They ask if Eri is the person he mentioned when he talked about forming a party, and when he confirms it, they can't help but feel a pang of envy, regretting that they gave up on being explorers. Putting their jealousy aside, they advise Kaido to watch what he says around Katsuragi, considering how concerned she was about his dungeon sessions. The group then continues their tour and makes their way to the auditorium, immediately struck by how much bigger it is compared to their schools. Katsuragi points out the electronic blackboard and mentions that students here even use tablets for their classes. Impressed, they also notice the sheer number of clubs available at the academy. Kaido also spots an advertisement nearby, and being the dungeon geek he is, starts to compare it to what they have in the dungeons, but his friends quickly shut him down. After checking out a few more spots, they head to the garden. The peaceful atmosphere wins them over, and Kaido's friends start to think that this academy is pretty amazing. It's too bad their grades aren't good enough to get in, but Kaido, the optimist, says he'll just have to study harder if he wants to make it here. His friends, though, are more concerned about how he'll afford the tuition. But Kaido starts to mention earning money through dungeon exploring, but catches himself since Katsuragi is there instead, says he'll get a part-time job. The four of them then take a moment to relax, and Katsuragi casually mentions how nice it would be to take breaks like this together between classes. Kaido agrees, letting his mind drift into a daydream about it until Mikyu and Hikari show up, snapping him out of it. They tell him that Eri mentioned he was here, and once again, his friends switch to Mommy Riz mode upon seeing the girls. Initially, Mikyu and Hikari spot in Katsuragi assume she's Kaido's girlfriend, but he quickly clears that up, just like he did with Eri. Kaido remembers that Mikyu is still a second year and Hikari a first year, making him wonder why they're even touring a college already. But Hikari says she wanted to check it out while she could, as it's a good opportunity. Katsuragi then asks how they know Kaido, and before he can even think of a response, the girls bluntly reveal that they're in a dungeon party with him. Katsuragi's mood instantly chills, but thankfully Eri arrives just in time to break the tension. She suggests they all head to the cafeteria for something to eat, and everyone eagerly agrees. The scene then shifts to them in the cafeteria, and everyone is blown away by the incredible menu. Eri points out that since it's a school cafeteria, the food is surprisingly affordable, and soon they dive into their meals, loving every bite. It's then revealed that this is the first time the rich girls have ever eaten in a cafeteria, and they're actually enjoying the experience. When Katsuragi goes to get a refill, Kaido offers to do it for her, but she suggests they grab enough for everyone, so the two of them head off together. Meanwhile, Hayato asks the girls if they've ever encountered a certain instructor during their explorer training. They recall meeting him and agree that they all disliked him because he was so strict. The boys nod in agreement, and Hayato starts to mimic the instructor's behavior, which gets a laugh from Hikari, who thinks he nails the impression, making him feel smug after the compliment. Miku then wonders if Shinji and Hayato are also explorers, and they admit they are, though only technically, since they completed the training but didn't pursue it further. Hayato mentions that the lectures were so long that Shinji kept dozing off, but Shinji quickly points out that Hayato wasn't much better. Hayato goes on to explain that's why they didn't know dungeon items are only effective within a 3 kilometers radius of the dungeon. He recounts how he once tried to use potions after getting hurt in a race, only to end up wasting all of them. Eri explains that this is the reason a theme park was set up within that 3 kilometers radius, and she mentions that all manufacturing and research of items and potions happen within that area. She adds that there are tons of rules and it's hard to keep track of them all, with the boys nodding in agreement. Shinji and Hayato soon chime in, saying at least the amusement park is fun, and Eri agrees, adding that the dungeon staff does an amazing job managing the park. As they continue chatting about how awesome dungeons are, Katsuragi overhears since she's standing right behind them. She and Kaido then hand out drinks to everyone, and she can't help but wonder why people are so obsessed with exploring dungeons. Afterward, they continue their tour and check out the swimming pool. A sight of the pool reminds him of the time Katsuragi saved him from drowning when they were kids. Mikyu overhears this and realizes that Kaido still can't swim, and Hikari feels a weird twinge in her chest, seeing him so close to Katsuragi. Mikyu is clueless about what's going on and asks Hikari about it, and Hikari admits it's a strange, unfamiliar feeling. They move onto the soccer field, and Hikari stumbles on the stairs, but Kaido is right there to catch her, leaving her blushing in his arms. She thanks him, and Eri throws in a compliment about Kaido's quick reflexes. Mikyu, not wanting things to get too awkward, reminds Kaido to put Hikari down, which he eventually does. Just then, a soccer player accidentally kicks a ball toward Mikyu's face, but Kaido, channeling his inner Cristiano Ronaldo, steps in and saves her. Both Mikyu and Hikari are left swooning, their hearts skipping a beat. Seeing this, Kaido's friends can't help but think he's pretty cool, and Eri suggests they head to the dojo next. At the dojo, Eri has a moment of self-reflection, wondering why she invited them there when it wasn't part of the plan. It's clear she just wants to impress Kaido, so she shows off her skills with a sword. After she finishes, everyone applauds, showering her with compliments. Eri, however, only cares about what Kaido thinks, and it dawns on her why she wanted to show off in the first place. As the day wraps up, Kaido and his friends get ready to leave the academy. Eri and the other girls exchange contact info, with Katsuragi offering help if they have any questions about the academy. Shinji and Hayato, not wanting to miss out, ask if they can get the girls' contact info too. They agree, and the boys are over the moon. Kaido and his friends thank Eri for the tour, and they head out, leaving with a lot more than just memories of the campus. On the train ride back home, Kaido is feeling pretty good about their visit to the academy, but his friends are way more focused on the girls they met. Hayato then asks Shinji which girl caught his eye, but they can't seem to pick just one. They start joking about how they should dive back into exploring dungeons, but Kaido quickly reminds them they're not supposed to be talking about this stuff, especially with Katsuragi right there. She gives them a smile, but anyone paying attention can tell it's got a bit of a sharp edge to it. Later, as Kaido and Katsuragi walk home together, he promises her that he's going to study hard so they can both make it into Oka Academy. She wishes him luck, but then, out of the blue, asks which of the three girls was his type. Kaido, caught off guard, insists he never really thought about it, though inside he's thinking that she is the one he likes. But he just can't bring himself to say it. Then Katsuragi brings up how Kaido was using everyone's first names today, but he doesn't get what she's hinting at, which seems to annoy her. Before he knows it, she's storming off to her house. Later on, Kaido is left scratching his head, trying to figure out why she got so mad. He thinks that maybe she was jealous of the other girls, but he brushes it off, thinking that can't be it. Then suddenly, he remembers another problem, thinking about how he's going to explain his mysterious absence to Sylphie and Lucilia tomorrow. Kaido is seen battling a slime in the dungeon, and he successfully defeats it using insecticides. He collects several slime cores, thinking they should be enough to sustain his two servants for a while, but Lucilia then asks about what Kaido was doing with Eri and the others the previous day. He explains that he was just on a school tour and wonders if she knows what a school is. However, Lucilia tells him not to mock her, though it's clear she doesn't actually know. Sylphie then steps in, explaining that a school is a place where humans study. Lucilia soon accepts that Kaido has his reasons, but she doesn't like being ignored. Kaido then apologizes and offers them 3 magic cores, but they aren't satisfied and demand 100 cores instead. As this conversation continues, Kaido notices a rare slime behind them and tries to warn them, but they think he's trying to trick them and don't pay attention. He insists, but Lucilia finds it irritating and takes out the slime without even looking at it. They then ask how he plans to make up for abandoning them. So Kaido offers 10 cores this time, which they accept, reminding him not to ignore them so much in the future. Afterward, Kaido notices that the rare slime dropped something called the Gloves of Force. He discovers that these gloves can exert an invisible force by consuming the wearer's energy. Kaido heads to the dungeon's 8th floor to test out the gloves. At first, he can't tell if they're working because the force is invisible. However, when he uses them on water, he notices slight ripples, indicating that the gloves are functional, though not very powerful. Lucilia dismisses the gloves as a worthless item, but Kaido tries to combine their power with his sword. The magic sword manages to split the water, and he realizes he can manipulate small objects at will. Eri and the others soon join him, and they agree to give their best effort today as well. Kaido thanks Eri for the tour the other day, mentioning it was fun and expressing his determination to pass his exams, though he knows he'll need to work hard. Hearing this, Eri offers to hold a study group for him, which Kaido appreciates. He asks if he can invite Katsuragi, surprising the girls, but Eri agrees. The others also decide to join the study group. Meanwhile, Kaido's servants notice that he's getting along better with the girls, and he hopes they'll continue to support him. Seeing the servants pouting, he wonders what's wrong, but they insist it's nothing, even though it's clear they're upset. He offers them some magic cores, which they eat while still pouting, much to the girls' amusement. The group then proceeds to the 9th floor, where Eri warns everyone to be cautious since it's their first time there. As they enter, Sylphie senses a powerful enemy, making Kaido wonder what they should do, but the girls insist they must continue. Kaido then notices there are no alternate routes, so they move toward the monster. However, Lucilia assures them that she'll handle things if it gets dangerous, and Eri reminds them they can always retreat if necessary. Soon they encounter the monster Sylphie sensed, a fearsome Orthros. Lucilia is surprised to see such a powerful creature on the 9th floor, and Kaido agrees, noting that an Orthros shouldn't be this far down. He suggests they retreat, and Eri agrees, but before they can, the monster spots them and attacks. Sylphie shields everyone with her Iron Maiden wall, while Hikari traps the Orthros with her Earthwave spell. Lucilia attacks with Hellfire of Destruction, but the spell barely affects the creature, which retaliates with its fire breath. The barrier protects them, but they still feel the intense heat. Lucilia then uses Breath of Erosion, but the monster remains unscathed. Miku also commands Snatch to attack, but its efforts are also ineffective. Seeing this, Kaido starts strategizing, telling Lucilia to attack while he distracts the monster. Lucilia strikes its belly with Hellfire of Destruction, but even this isn't enough to defeat it. Kaido instructs Sylphie to use her Divine Spear in conjunction with Lucilia's Hellfire of Destruction. They attack together, but the resilient beast refuses to die. The Orthros lunges at Kaido, but he dodges, and Eri and Miku unleash their attacks. The monster tries to counter with its fire breath, but Kaido uses his magic sword combined with the Gloves of Force to injure it and blocks its mouth with a water ball, preventing it from using fire breath. Finally, they all work together to launch a combined assault, and after a fierce battle, the Orthros is defeated. Relieved, the group celebrates their victory, but the girls are exhausted and suggest resting before moving on. Kaido praises his servants for their hard work and rewards them with some magic cores. Lucelia remains puzzled as to why an Orthros was on this floor, and Sylphie senses another powerful presence nearby. Suddenly, a demon appears, unsurprised that his dog was defeated, but Kaido and the others quickly realize that he was controlling the Orthros. However, Lucelia notes that the demon is quite strong, and the demon then declares that none of them will escape, casting a spell called Darkmare. Sylphie defends with her barrier as the demon swiftly dashes towards them, but the barrier holds firm. Kaido can't even see the demon's attack, and realizing the potential danger, hands Sylphie some magic cores, urging her to maintain the barrier at all costs. The group launches a combined attack from within the barrier, but it barely affects the demon. Lucelia then suggests that Sylphie might need to go on the offensive if things continue like this, but Kaido worries about the safety of his party. They assure him they'll be fine, and Eri confidently claims she can handle the demon's sword, no matter how fast it is. Trusting them, Kaido gives the sign and Sylphie lowers the barrier. She and Lucelia then attack the demon together, but it proves ineffective. The demon attempts to strike Kaido, but Eri intercepts, only to be thrown against the wall. The demon then targets Kaido again, but Kaido blocks with his magic sword, breaking the demon's weapon in the process. Enraged, the demon, furious that his sword, given to him by a duke, was destroyed, punches Kaido, sending him flying. Seeing this, Sylphie, Lucelia, and Snatch attack the demon together out of anger. Meanwhile, Kaido heals himself with a potion, and Miku checks on him. Assuring her that he's fine, Kaido asks for her help. She and Snatch then team up to attack the demon, creating an opening for Kaido to stab him from behind using Balzard. Kaido unleashes Balzard's power, creating a large hole in the demon's body, causing him to fall to his knees. Kaido wonders if this is enough to defeat him, but the demon quickly heals himself with magic and retaliates, punching Kaido. The girls try to protect him, but the demon easily pushes through them. Even Sylphie's attack is ineffective, and she is thrown against the wall. Lucelia urges Kaido to run while she fights the demon, but Kaido stays, determined to find a way to defeat him. Desperate, Kaido remembers Lucelia's skill, Beauty of Gluttony, which allows her to temporarily power up by consuming her contractor's HP. He asks her to activate it, and she reminds him that it requires consuming his life force. Kaido insists it's their only chance for survival. Reluctantly, Lucelia reveals her true form by devouring Kaido's HP. Kaido notices that she has grown into her mommy form, and Lucelia explains that her level has been restored, but this isn't her complete form. She confidently states that it's enough to defeat the demon. The demon, unable to recognize her, carelessly attacks, but his attacks have no effect, leaving him terrified. He attacks again with the same result and finally asks who she is. Lucelia introduces herself as a Viscount-class demon, horrifying him. Despite his attempts to change his approach, she remains unforgiving for the harm done to her friends. She prepares to unleash the storm of divine destruction. And the demon, realizing the gravity of the situation, wonders about her origins, as such an attack is beyond a Viscount-class demon. Lucelia then destroys the demon with her attack. After the battle, Kaido asks Lucelia to cancel Beauty of Gluttony as he is reaching his limit, but she hesitates, having just regained her mommy form. She teasingly asks Kaido what he thinks of her appearance. He insists that this isn't the time for such questions, but she refuses to cancel the ability until he answers. Reluctantly, Kaido compliments her mommy form. But Lucelia then asks if he will treat her as kindly as he does Sylphie, and when he agrees, she finally cancels the ability, sparing Kaido from the brink of death. They'd all heal up by drinking potions, and Kaido notices he has leveled up to 18, with an HP increase of 8 points and a new skill, Slight Pain Resistance. The girls have also leveled up, and Kaido acknowledges that this was inevitable after the day's events. Before heading back, Kaido checks the loot and finds Orthro's magic core, which is the largest he's ever seen. Maiku and Hikari search for something in the dungeon, but it's not what they need. Kaido also finds the demon's servant card and wonders what to do with it. Eri and the others leave the decision to him, as he and Lucelia were the ones who defeated the demon. Lucelia and Sylphie suggest selling the demon, but Kaido thinks he might be useful since he was stronger than his current servants. He summons the Baron-rank demon named Berulia, but is disappointed when Berulia appears in child form, just like the others. Kaido asks why Berulia is so small, and Berulia explains that his level has been reset. Regretting the summoning, Kaido even considers selling him, shocking Berulia. Later, Kaido is seen bathing in the dungeon's bathhouse with Berulia washing his back. Berulia asks Kaido not to abandon him, and Kaido worries about how this might look if someone sees them. Berulia then asks if they'll stay together, and Kaido, trying to stop the back scrubbing, assures him they'll be together forever. Berulia hugs him, thanking him, though Kaido feels uneasy. Meanwhile, in the girls' bath, the servants overhear them through the walls and think Kaido and Berulia seem to be getting along well. Afterwards, Kaido sells the Crystal of Orthros, and the appraiser is surprised to learn they obtained it from defeating an Orthros on the 9th floor. She says she'll send a team to investigate immediately and informs Kaido that the core is worth 24 million yen. Kaido is shocked by the amount, and she offers to transfer the money to his account. Kaido wants to split the money equally among the four of them, but the others don't mind if he keeps it all. However, he insists on sharing, so they agree to take their portion. The appraiser then asks if Kaido needs help filing his income tax, which confuses him since he's never dealt with taxes before. Later, at a cafe with the girls, Kaido apologizes for making them sit through a lecture on income tax when they're already tired. They don't mind and offer advice on how to handle taxes, suggesting he save all of his expenditure bills to reduce his tax liability. Kaido realizes he usually throws away such bills and decides to keep them from now on. As the day ends, Ikari leaves by car and Eri remarks that it's been a hectic day. She notes that Kaido seems to attract special things, but he dismisses the idea even though he briefly considers the fact that he has 3 servant cards before dismissing the thought. The scene then transitions to Miku speaking with Hikari on the phone. Hikari expresses her excitement about the upcoming weekend raid, eager to see everyone's new skills. Miku advises her not to push herself too hard and suggests taking some time off if needed. Hikari assures her that she's fine and doesn't want to waste time resting. Miku agrees to see her on the weekend, and they end the call. Once the call is over, Ikari drops her tough facade and starts coughing. During the weekend, Kaido and his team are inside the dungeon once again. Kaido asks Berulia to demonstrate his strength, but Berulia requests a weapon, surprising Kaido, who had assumed Berulia had his own. However, Lucili reminds Kaido that Berulia broke his weapon earlier. Kaido rummages through his bag and pulls out a tungsten rod he had purchased earlier, offering it to Berulia. Though Berulia hesitates, hoping for something more sword-like, he apologizes for seeming ungrateful. Kaido explains that it's all he has at the moment, and Berulia reluctantly accepts it. As the group continues through the dungeon, Berulia uses the tungsten rod to fight monsters and successfully defeats them. Kaido, impressed by his strength, realizes that Berulia might be stronger than him. Berulia, hoping to prove his worth, asks Kaido to keep him around even though he's not yet fully accustomed to his current level. With teary eyes, Berulia expresses his desire to serve Princess Lucilia and Princess Sylphie. The girls are flattered by his words, and Berulia promises to become Kaido's sword and do his best. Kaido, agreeing to keep him, acknowledges Berulia's strength despite his slower movements and expresses his anticipation of working together. Kaido then decides to test Berulia's Dark Cure skill. He intentionally reduces his HP to near 0 and asks Berulia to cast Dark Cure on him. While the spell helps Kaido recover slightly, Berulia explains that Dark Cure is meant primarily to heal injuries and restore HP just enough to keep someone from dying. Kaido is disappointed as he had hoped to use Dark Cure in combination with Beauty of Gluttony to extend the duration of the spell. Lucilia suggests they try it out, but Kaido declines, worried about his low HP. Lucilia reassures him that he won't die instantly, eager to transform into her adult form again, but Kaido falls while trying to evade her. Berulia offers to heal Kaido's injury again, and after casting Dark Cure, Kaido notices that his wound no longer hurts. Realizing that Berulia's skill could help him save potions, Kaido compliments him, making Berulia happy. The group then heads to the deeper floors of the dungeon. They encounter a metal golem, and Eri and the others prepare to showcase their abilities. Hikari uses her Ice Circle skill to freeze the golem in place, while Eri slices it in half with her Iron Slash skill. Kaido is amazed by their teamwork, but Eri notes that her skill drains a lot of MP, so she can't afford to miss. Next, they encounter 3 Earth Golems, and it's Miku and Snatch's turn to shine. Miku uses her Dance of Illusion skill to trap the golems in an illusion, while Snatch attacks them with his Hedgehog skill, easily taking them down. Kaido observes how much stronger their combination has become and decides it's time to test Sylphie's new skill. As they continue exploring the dungeon, they come across more monsters. Kaido instructs Sylphie to use her song The War Maiden skill, and asks Lucilia and Berulia to join the battle to test if her skill affects servants. Sylphie begins singing, summoning an angel who blesses Kaido and his servants with buffs. They feel a surge of strength and can predict the monsters' movements, allowing them to defeat them with a single strike. After the battle, Lucilia tells Kaido she felt her power increase, although it wasn't as strong as Beauty of Gluttony. Kaido was pleased that the skill works on servants, but Berulia admits he didn't feel any difference. Eri speculates that the skill's effectiveness might depend on trust levels, disappointing Berulia. However, the others encourage him, and he vows to build trust moving forward. Berulia, once a rear guard, now aspires to knighthood and to improve his swordsmanship. He mentions that he could do even more with the proper sword. Kaido steps away briefly and returns with a bastard sword. Berulia, overwhelmed with emotion, remains silent, leading the others to wonder if he dislikes the sword. However, Berulia is so happy to receive a real sword that he cries, promising to do his best. He then tests the sword against some monsters, effortlessly cutting through them, impressing everyone. Berulia hands over the magic crystals to Kaido, feeling more energized now that he has a sword. Kaido thanks him for his hard work, and Berulia is grateful for the praise. Kaido then wonders if Berulia could teach him swordsmanship, and Berulia agrees, suggesting they start immediately. Kaido, however, has to leave early and declines, which prompts Sylphie and Lucilia to ask why. Kaido doesn't want to go into details, but Eri reveals that they're having a study group at her house tomorrow. The servant girls pout and Kaido apologizes, promising to return soon. The scene then transitions to Kaido and his friends arriving at Eri's house. They are astonished by how enormous it is. Shortly after, Miku and Hikari arrive in their car and they all head inside. As they walk, they see nothing but a forest ahead and wonder where the house could be. They soon notice the girls getting into a car to drive to the house, and Kaido asks for a ride. However, the girls point out a path for the men, leaving them dismayed at the prospect of walking. The girls then greet Eri in her house, and Katsuragi comments on how elegant it is. Eri thanks her, explaining that her house has been a dojo for generations, designed to balance mind, technique, and body. She mentions that there's a dojo for honing skills, a waterfall for mental clarity, and a garden for physical training. She also notes that the hill is perfect for building basic physical strength, something she uses daily. When the guys finally arrive at the house, they're completely exhausted. Eri tells them it's time to start their study session, much to their disbelief as they had hoped for a break. Eri then leads them to the dojo, surprising the guys who thought they'd be going to her room. She explains that her room isn't big enough for everyone, and that she can practice her spear techniques in the dojo if she loses focus. She also suggests they visit the waterfall if they struggle with idle thoughts. The guys, skeptical, realize that Eri is probably the only one who would do these things. Everyone takes their seats to start studying. Kaido hopes to sit next to Katsuragi, but that seat is already taken, so Eri invites him to sit next to her instead. Katsuragi feels a pang of jealousy seeing them together, but Hikari asks Katsuragi to teach her instead. Kaido thinks that Katsuragi will do a great job teaching Hikari since she's always been caring and kind. His friends tease him in the background, saying he knows Katsuragi well and that she's cute. This makes the other girls jealous, but Kaido clarifies that he and Katsuragi are just childhood friends. After this, the girls find it hard to focus on studying, and Eri suggests they go to the waterfall. The boys are hesitant, considering it's winter, but the girls agree to the idea, and Kaido's friends, seeing the girls' enthusiasm, decide to join as well. Kaido checks on Katsuragi, who assures him she's fine, and he can't help but notice how cute she looks with wet clothes. The scene then shifts to everyone leaving Eri's house at night. Shinji and Hayato complain that they've forgotten everything they learned due to the cold waterfall, while the girls say they had fun and suggest doing it again. The guys notice that the group is getting along better than they were in the morning, and Kaido feels happy about this. The next day, Lucilia and Sylphie find out that Kaido had fun at the waterfall instead of studying. The girls confirm this and mention that the fun they had has put them in good spirits today. Hikari comments that they might reach the 10th floor at this pace, and the servants are annoyed that the others got to have all the fun. Lucilia becomes determined to prove she can be more useful than Eri and the others, and they all head out. On the way, Miku tells Hikari not to push herself too hard, but Hikari mentions that she's been having a lot of fun lately and hopes these days last forever. She also reveals her desire to be a hero. Suddenly, Sylphie senses monsters ahead, and they come across 2 silver orcs and a lizard man. Kaido instructs Sylphie to sing the War Maiden song, which grants everyone a buff. Hikari freezes all the monsters with her ice circle, while Berulia attacks the lizard man, and Eri and Kaido take down the silver orcs. More monsters appear, and Miku and Snatch defeat them with a combined attack. Eri takes on some monsters as well, with Kaido and Berulia handling the rest. After defeating all the monsters, Kaido is surprised at how easily they handle the monsters on the 9th floor. Lucilia, frustrated that she didn't get to do anything, expresses her desire to be useful too. Kaido calms her down and feeds magic crystals to all his servants. Hikari hopes they can continue having fun like this. The group then reaches the stairs leading to the 10th floor. Kaido wonders if they should proceed, and Hikari enthusiastically leads the way. However, she suddenly starts feeling unwell and collapses. The others notice blood coming from her mouth, and Miku, with tears in her eyes, desperately tries to wake her up. After rushing Hikari to the hospital, Miku clung to her hand even as Eri reassured her that Hikari wasn't in serious danger. The doctor had informed them that Hikari just needed rest and had been sedated so she wouldn't wake up that day. Despite this, Miku insisted on staying by her side. Kaido mentioned that they had high-quality potions, so Hikari would be fine, but Miku snapped at him, pointing out that the potions only healed injuries, not illnesses. Eri and Kaido asked if Miku knew anything about Hikari's sickness, but before she could answer, Hikari's parents arrived. They thanked Miku and the others for being such good friends to their daughter, noting how much happier Hikari had become since meeting them. Hearing this, Miku was overwhelmed with guilt for not being able to help her friend more, and she ran off. Kaido and Eri followed her, finding her sulking on the rooftop. There, Miku recounted how she met Hikari 2 years ago. At that time, Miku was a top player in a card game, unbeatable by anyone. Even the former champion kept challenging her only to be humiliated repeatedly as he couldn't win. Frustrated, he accused Miku of being a whale, winning only because she spent thousands of dollars on premium decks. Miku retorted that it wasn't the cards, but her strategy that made her a good player, something he would never understand. Confident as ever, she felt unbeatable, until the shy Hikari challenged her. Hikari seemed like a novice, but Miku accepted the challenge and was shocked to see Hikari using the exact same deck as hers. Miku knew Hikari must be wealthy to afford such rare cards, but what surprised her more was how identical their decks were despite their different playstyles. In the end, Miku won and advised Hikari to choose cards that match her own style. Hikari admitted she was a big fan and wanted to emulate Miku. Instantly charmed, Miku offered to help Hikari build a custom deck. As they worked on it together, they became best friends. They had fun together, and soon they registered as a team for the national tournament, where they dominated the competition and became champions. But just as Hikari held up the trophy, she fainted. She was rushed to the hospital, where she apologized to Miku for hiding something from her. Before she could explain, she was taken inside, and her parents arrived, revealing Hikari's illness to Miku. After finishing her story, Kaido asked Miku about the disease, but Eri stopped him, recognizing the sensitivity of the topic. Just then, Hikari's father appeared and decided to tell them the truth. Hikari was suffering from an incurable disease that progressively deteriorated her organs. The doctors had warned that if she collapsed again, her chances of survival were slim. Eri expressed surprise, saying she never noticed any signs of illness in Hikari, to which Miku explained that Hikari's medication suppressed her symptoms. Also, since Hikari had high stats in the dungeon, she always felt better there. Hikari's father was shocked to hear about her going to the dungeon, realizing that when she said she was going to the park with friends on weekends, she was actually going to the dungeon. Miku apologized for lying, but he reassured her that if that's what Hikari wanted, he was okay with it. Kaido then asked the crucial question: why was Hikari exploring the dungeon despite her health condition? Miku hesitantly explained that she had read online about a rare drop item called the elixir in the dungeon, said to cure any illness. It was rumored to sell for millions of dollars on the black market. As Miku was reading the article, Hikari appeared beside her and asked if she was planning to go to the dungeon to find the elixir. Miku tried to deny it, but Hikari could see right through her. Smiling, Hikari insisted on going with her. Miku warned her about the dangers of the dungeon and the uncertainty of finding the elixir, but Hikari was determined, arguing that it would be safer for both of them to go together and that the elixir was meant for her anyway. Their argument escalated until Miku suggested they go outside to cool off. Hikari then said that if they found the elixir, it could help scientists develop cures for every disease in the world, emphasizing the importance of their mission. In the end, Miku couldn't refuse her, and they decided to enter the dungeon together. Everyone was taken aback by Miku's story, and she became somber, expressing how Hikari always thought of others despite being sick. She apologized to Hikari's father again, but he just thanked her, saying she had done a great favor by going to the dungeon with his daughter. Miku was moved to tears, replying that she was just doing what she could. Kaido felt a sense of deja vu, as if he had heard those words before. Miku then declared that she would be Hikari's hero, turning to her friends to apologize for keeping Hikari's condition a secret. Eri reassured her, saying she understood and volunteered to join them in their quest to find the elixir. Miku was a bit discouraged, doubting its existence, but Eri insisted they just needed to believe it was real. Seeing them getting emotional, Kaido reminded them that he was also part of the team. He admitted that he had always thought the elixir was just a myth, but after hearing Miku's motivation, he wanted to prove himself wrong and find it. Eri suggested they delve deeper into the dungeon tomorrow, reasoning that the monster that drops the elixir should be on the lower levels. The next day, they ventured to the 10th floor of the dungeon, facing off against camel monsters. Kaido immediately instructed Sylphie to sing a song that would boost everyone's abilities. He then directed Miku to attack from the left, Eri from the right, while he prepared to face the monster in the middle. However, Berulia stepped forward, requesting to take the lead in battle. Lucelia also wanted to help but got upset when Kaido assigned her to backup. As the camels approached, Kaido ordered everyone to scatter. Maikyu used her pedal dance to confuse one of the camels, allowing her servant, Snatch, to take it down with sharp needles. Eri charged up her new skill, defeating another camel in a single strike. Meanwhile, Berulia sprinted towards a camel and effortlessly defeated it, presenting its mana core to Kaido, stating that the elixir didn't drop. Kaido replied that such a powerful medicine wouldn't drop easily, and that they'd have to defeat many more monsters to find it. Sylphie and Lucelia, now aware of Hikari's condition, expressed concern, regretting that they hadn't noticed her life-threatening illness earlier. As Miku took a break to drink water, she complained about the intense heat of the desert floor. Kaido agreed, then checked on his servants, asking if they were affected by the heat. Both Sylphie and Lucelia assured him that they had endured much worse. Berulia, feeling left out, became jealous that Kaido only asked the girls. Suddenly, he sensed something approaching and warned Kaido to move aside. Kaido asked what was happening, and Sylphie quickly alerted him to something beneath his feet. Out of nowhere, a sandworm erupted from the ground, wrapping around Kaido. Miku stepped in, using her peel dance to confuse the monster, causing it to release Kaido. Lucelia thought it was finally her moment, but Berulia beat her to it, slashing the monster for daring to attack his master. Lucelia, annoyed that Berulia stole her chance, scolded him and threatened to send him back to hell. Later, they visited Hikari in the hospital and shared their adventures with her. She joked about wanting to see Kaido rolled up like a burrito by the sandworm, but he assured her it wasn't worth watching. She also wanted to see Lucilia's pouting face, and her friends confirmed that Lucelia did indeed look cute. Hikari expressed her eagerness to get discharged so she could join them in the dungeon again. Miku just smiled and nodded in response, but once they were outside, she broke down in tears, questioning how Hikari could smile in her condition. Miku knew Hikari was fully aware of how dire her health was. Soon after, Hikari's parents arrived to pick her up, and Eri joined them in the car, telling Kaido that she wanted to become someone who could protect everyone close to her. He assured her that as Hikari's dear friend, she would do everything she could to protect her. Kaido was struck by a sense of familiarity, as if he had heard those words before. Later, Kaido received a call from Katsuragi asking about Hikari's condition. Not wanting to worry her, he hesitated to tell the truth, but then a memory from their childhood surfaced. He recalled an incident where Katsuragi cried because her father had lied to her. Her father had promised not to go to the dungeon again, but broke that promise, explaining that someone had to explore the dungeon and uncover its mysteries to help others. He said he wanted to be that person, which is why he was doing everything he could to become a hero. Remembering those words, Kaido told Katsuragi he would call her later, then headed back to the dungeon. Lucelia asked why he returned, and Sylphie warned him of another monster beneath their feet. As the ground suddenly sank, they realized it wasn't just a sandworm this time. A giant sand crab emerged. Determined, Kaido decided to fight it, resolute in doing whatever it took to help his friends and become a hero. After another exhausting day, Kaido returned home. From her window, Katsuragi noticed his arrival. His first stop was a soothing bath, but his mom quickly scolded him for being late again, reminding him not to overwork himself and to focus on his studies. Drained, Kaido promised to take it easier the next day. At school, he rushed in late, apologizing for oversleeping. The teacher warned him about his frequent tardiness. Between classes, some girls were chatting about a new game, while Shinji and Hayato were disappointed that Katsuragi couldn't visit Hikari. As usual, Kaido was dozing off in class. After school, despite feeling worn out, Kaido assured his friends he was fine. They thought he'd visit Hikari, but instead, he made a detour to search for the elixir near the dungeon. So they spent the afternoon playing cards with her at the hospital. Hikari was beating them so easily that Hayato challenged her. Shinji warned him he didn't stand a chance, which made Hikari laugh. She mentioned she had learned from Miku. Hayato then said he'd bring a video game next time since he was unbeatable at Dungeon Platoon 3, but Hikari revealed she was ranked at plus 50, leaving Hayato realizing he'd lose again. Hikari coughed but assured them she was fine. The boys said their goodbyes, promising to return soon. Hikari asked them to thank Katsuragi for the food basket, although Katsuragi hadn't visited, which saddened her. To cheer her up, Hayato explained Katsuragi disliked the dungeon park where the hospital was. Shinji added that she was very shy and hated crowds. Hikari then asked if Katsuragi was related to Captain Katsuragi. Hayato accidentally confirmed it. Hikari had come across the history of dungeons and knew Captain Katsuragi had the same name and eye color. Finally, Hayato admitted that Katsuragi's father was indeed the captain. Hikari had suspected as much. The book she read said he was a hero, the first captain of the dungeon exploration squad, but he disappeared after reaching the 41st floor. Hikari realized why Katsuragi avoided the park. She was likely worried about her father's dungeon adventures. Briefly, Hikari wondered if her friend was upset with her, but the boys quickly reassured her that wasn't the case. Still, Hikari wondered if Katsuragi's father, who had disappeared, could still be alive. Determined, she promised herself to reach the 41st floor and go even deeper, hoping it would make Katsuragi more comfortable visiting the park again. Meanwhile, Kaido's team was progressing through the dungeon, facing stronger enemies like the Sphinx. Sophie sang the Valkyrie song to boost the group while Berulia blocked the creature's fire attack with her sword. Kaido ordered Lucilia to retaliate and she unleashed her destructive flames. Although they hurt the Sphinx, it wasn't enough to defeat it. The creature charged at Sylphie, who teleported Eri and Miku behind the monster. Kaido seized the moment, dashed onto the Sphinx, and finished it off with his magic sword. The victory leveled up the humans, but the servants remained unchanged. Lucilia was frustrated, but Sylphie mentioned the dropped item. Eri and Miku realized finding the elixir would be a tough task, but Kaido encouraged the team to press on. They aimed to reach the portal, but not before giving their servants some magic cores to eat, as they were already complaining about hunger. Later, the group met with the dungeon staff, who reported the loot for the day was worth 4 million yen. Just as the staff member was about to announce how much each member would receive, Kaido reminded her that Hikari was still part of the team and deserved her share. As they left, Kaido asked Eri if she could stay in the dungeon on weekdays, as she had previously mentioned she could only come on weekends. Eri explained that as long as she didn't have university commitments, it would be fine, and she wished she could explore the dungeon daily. Miku mentioned that she could visit the dungeon whenever she had free time. Noticing Kaido looking pale, she asked if he was okay. He assured her he was fine and quickly headed to the station after saying goodbye. Back home, Kaido watched * Dungeon Love, where the protagonist said that finding rare items wouldn't be fun if it were too easy. His sister chimed in, saying that the deeper floors had better chances for rare drops. Inspired, Kaido and his friends decided they needed to explore deeper into the dungeon to uncover its secrets and become great explorers. Overhearing this, Kaido realized his best chance to find the elixir would be to do the same, so he researched the monsters on the 12th floor. The next morning, despite his exhaustion, Kaido returned to school, where his teacher struggled to keep him awake. After class, he rushed to the dungeon, but his friends stopped him, suggesting he take a break and relax, maybe go bowling. Kaido refused, determined to push forward even as Katsuragi tried to stop him, hinting that it was all for Hikari. Ignoring their concerns, Kaido pressed on to the dungeon alone. On the 12th floor, Kaido was visibly tired and Lucilia and Berulia, his shy companions, advised him to rest. He disagreed but promised to retreat if things got dangerous. They entered the icy floor and quickly realized they needed better gear for the cold, but they decided to explore first. No monsters were in sight, and Sylphie sensed no threats. Kaido decided it was time to leave, but just as he made that choice, Sylphie detected a rapidly growing presence. Suddenly, a swarm of bats flew past, fleeing from a dark tunnel, followed by the sound of heavy footsteps. The ground trembled as a herd of giant boars charged toward them, a stampede. Shai activated her magic shield, and Kaido scooped her up as they tried to flee. However, they soon realized they couldn't outrun the beasts. With no other choice, Kaido asked Sylphie to sing the Valkyrie song. Muttering about pushing his limits, he ordered Lucilia to unleash her flames, taking down some of the boars, but the rest kept coming. With no option left, the team fought back, taking down many of the beasts. To their surprise, the girls' levels increased mid-battle. As another boar charged, Kaido prepared to strike but slipped on the ice, getting severely injured as his HP plummeted. Berulia rushed to his aid, and the girls urged her to grab Kaido and flee. After absorbing magical cores for energy, Sylphie and Lucilia combined their powers. Sylphie unleashed the goddess's judgment while Lucilia used the wrath of purgatory. Berulia shielded Kaido from the explosion, but despite their victory, Kaido's condition remained grim. However, Berulia was low on mana and Kaido's condition was still critical. Lucilia, determined to keep him conscious, slapped Kaido's face to stop him from fading away. She tried giving him an HP potion, but it spilled from his mouth. Desperate, she transferred the potion to him mouth to mouth to ensure he swallowed it. As Kaido's condition improved, whether from the potion or something else, Lucilia eagerly opened another vial and repeated the process. Sylphie, seeing the success, innocently followed suit. When Berulia attempted to join in with his own potion, the girls made it clear he wasn't invited. After all their efforts, Kaido managed to stand but soon collapsed again from exhaustion. He was immediately taken to the dungeon's healer, who reassured them that his injuries weren't severe. The only advice given was for him to rest. Eri and Miku visited him at the medical center, where Kaido admitted he had been scared during the stampede. Once released, Eri offered him a ride home, but he refused, hurriedly making his way to the station and quietly apologizing to Hikari as he slipped away from the girls. That night, Kaido was burning various items he had collected that represented his love for the dungeon, monthly dungeon magazines, and a newspaper clipping about Captain Katsuragi's disappearance. Just before destroying the article, he decided to visit Katsuragi and apologize for never considering her feelings. She had always feared something might happen to him in the labyrinth, especially after his dangerous encounter with the wild boars. Kaido finally understood her concern was justified. He had always admired Captain Katsuragi, seeing him as a hero for leading the special dungeon exploration squad. Yet when the captain vanished, few seemed to care about the pain it caused, particularly to his young daughter, who was deeply affected by the loss. Determined to prove everyone wrong, Kaido vowed to uncover the mysteries of the dungeon, not for his own glory, but to show that Katsuragi's father was a true hero. That's why the newbie slime hunter kept returning to the dungeon. However, at that moment, Kaido promised he would never return again and apologized for his fear. Katsuragi responded, saying that while Kaido may have originally ventured into the dungeon for her, it had now become about something more. He was trying to protect her, just as her father once did. When Kaido asked her if she truly understood what it meant to be a hero, she shook her head. He explained that being a hero meant protecting and serving others, enduring loneliness, uncertainty, and danger, while sacrificing oneself for the greater good. That was how Katsuragi wanted to remember her father. After sharing her view of heroism, Katsuragi told Kaido that he fit that definition perfectly. Even though she worried about his expeditions, she knew she would regret stopping him from exploring. Kaido, unsure of how far to take things, didn't know if the item they sought even existed. Katsuragi told him to do what was within his reach. Hearing this, Kaido looked at his hand and came to an important realization. He thanked Katsuragi for giving him hope, understanding that he had his own way of fighting. Katsuragi made him promise to return alive from the dungeon, and he did. Later, Kaido led his team to the first floor of the dungeon to hunt slimes, believing it was the quickest way to find the elixir, as Eri thought he attracted rare items. Miku argued that magical items were found deeper in the dungeon, but Eri reminded her that Kaido had found the magical sword on the 5th floor and both Sylphie and Lucilia had appeared on the 1st. Sylphie then shared with her master the law of causality, the belief that everything happens for a reason, and that the present exists so one can fulfill their purpose. The group, including Hikari, united for this common goal, to work together. The angel and the demons shook hands, sealing their promise to cooperate. The girls formed a team determined to hunt as many slimes as possible in Hikari's name. Wasting no time, each member used their unique abilities to defeat the weak monsters on the 1st floor, all in search of the elusive elixir. Relying on Kaido's strange luck, they took down countless creatures, hoping to find a miracle cure for their comrade's illness. Shinji and Hayato joined in, contributing to the mission. As the days passed, the group embraced Captain Katsuragi's vision of heroism, which began shaping their actions and worldview. After a long journey battling slimes, they took a break to enjoy the magical cores they collected. Eri was disappointed that no rare items had dropped until Shinji suddenly wished everyone a Merry Christmas. Hayato joked about wanting Santa Claus to bring them the elixir, sparking a debate between Sylphie and Lucilia about who Santa was. They even suggested throwing a Christmas party with Hikari. At that moment, Sylphie sensed a new presence and the group went to investigate. They found a rainbow-colored slime. Without hesitation, Kaido approached cautiously, trying not to scare it away. The plan was to block its escape, so each member took a position around the cave to cover all exits. Once the group was in place, it was time to act. Sylphie unleashed her divine lightning, followed by her destructive flames. As usual, this deadly combo wreaked havoc on the battlefield, striking the target directly. To everyone's surprise, the slime emerged from the smoke completely unharmed. It darted around, but each time it moved, one of the team members blocked its path. Even Kaido struggled to land a hit. Gradually, though, the group closed in, trapping the creature. They counted to 3, preparing for the final strike. Hours later, Eri and Miku snuck Hikari out of the hospital and brought her to an elevator where Kaido was waiting. They soon arrived at a dungeon with Hikari still on a stretcher. The rest of the group awaited them. Miku carefully lifted her sick friend and showed her a servant card from Queen Titania, a gift to the healer. Miku explained that this servant might be able to cure Hikari, so she urged her to summon the card and become Titania's master. Hikari began the summoning, and the card emitted a brilliant light, forcing everyone to shield their eyes. From the glowing light, a small girl with pink hair and fairy wings appeared. Titania asked if she stood before her master, and Hikari introduced herself. Kaido explained that her master was sick, and Miku asked if Titania could heal her. The servant immediately tried to heal Hikari, but as a low-level healer, she wasn't strong enough to perform a complete cure. The group felt disheartened, but Eri came up with an idea. Since Titania couldn't fully heal Katsuragi, she might still be able to provide partial relief. Titania agreed and began casting a spell, a brief prayer to the silver moon, asking for light to guide Hikari back to health. After a tense wait, Hikari slowly regained consciousness. At first, everyone was anxious, but soon she jumped up, overjoyed to be moving again. Hikari twirled in happiness after being bedridden for so long. She called out to Miku, who hugged her tightly, saying it was the best Christmas gift she could have received. Hikari called Miku her hero, and as the others joined in, she declared that everyone, including Titania, was her hero. Titania, thrilled to have already made a difference, looked forward to working with her master. On the way home, Katsureji shared her joy over Hikari's recovery. Kaido reminded her to stay realistic. Titania had mentioned that the spell was low level and would only last for about a year. Once Titania leveled up, she could unlock Yggdrasil, a spell that might cure all physical ailments if certain conditions were met. In short, they had a year to either find the elixir or help Titania master the spell. Kaido and Miku would need to return to the dungeon more often than expected. Despite this, Katsureji wasn't upset. She and Kaido had agreed that he could pursue his goals as long as he returned safely each day. Wishing him luck, Katsureji asked him to come back unharmed. As snow began to fall, she wished him a Merry Christmas, which Kaido quickly returned, not noticing the growing tension between them. When he realized the moment, Kaido blushed but gathered the courage to share a secret with her. Just as he was about to reveal it, his mother called Katsureji inside to avoid catching a cold. Kaido lost the moment to confess, but he smiled at her without embarrassment. The next day, they visited a temple to pray, each making a wish. Kaido shared that his wish was to safely explore the dungeon that year. Katsureji was outraged, scolding him for always thinking about the dungeon instead of focusing on typical high school goals like preparing for college. Kaido explained that he could only concentrate on one thing at a time. Later, Kaido returned to the dungeon with his team for another day of exploration. Eri dedicated herself to understanding what it truly meant to be a strong hero by helping those in need, while Miku focused on finding the elixir and helping Titania master Yggdrasil to heal her friend. Together, they pressed on through the dungeon. These mysterious dungeons had appeared worldwide 13 years ago, and Kaido was determined to become a hero by continuing to explore them with his team. This then marks the end of the final episode of this anime recap. If you enjoyed the video and want more of it, please support the channel by leaving a like and subscribe. Let's help us reach our current goal of 20,000 subscribers.